horse. I've been a horse for the last week, so I understand.
Okay, cool. You know, yesterday I had an opportunity of being at the luncheon for the National Association of Black Journalists, and that opportunity was wonderful. It was really wonderful to hear you speak about the different aspects to social media networking and how you were relaying it to the younger journalists for them to understand exactly the opportunities that are there. I'd like to begin at that spot, and then we'll move forward.
Well, here's the fundamental issue for me. I think for African Americans, we have an amazing opportunity before us if we truly and fully embrace technology. I remember several years ago when I was still in college. My parents had a computer at their home, and my mom was using the computer. And I told my dad, I said, "Look, so Dad, you learn to use a computer. Well, if I want something done, you know, I had your mom do it." I said, "Look, Dad, if something ever happens with your existing job, you need to be able to understand computers. Why have one in your house now and you don't take advantage?" And so he never did. And then, of course, when that job ended, and then he was applying for jobs, he needed computer skills. And so when he eventually got hired by the city of Houston, he went through, and he was just fascinated going through, you know, learning about the computer, surfing the internet. And my deal was, but had you embraced that 5-10 years previously, what position you would have been in? The same thing I think for journalists, for young folks out there, because look, I went to Yates High School of Communications, and so understanding technology was so critical then. It has changed the ball game. You can be sitting right here on Alameda. You can be, a story could happen right here. You can be able to take that video, take that audio, publish it to the web. All of a sudden it's broadcast around the world, and then folks are calling you about that particular video. And so it is amazing how a few African Americans are embracing that. You got young kids out there who spend more time playing around with their cell phones as opposed to saying, wait a minute, how can I take the knowledge of the cell phone and the video and the audio, and with YouTube, with AOL video, all of these different editing software out there, I can create an opportunity for myself. And not just to be a filmmaker or be a rapper, but somebody who can be a producer for radio, for television, or for a website. I mean, you got free blogs out there, you know. And so I am always saying the opportunities are before us. The question is, will somebody be there to train us, to encourage us, and to open our eyes to this amazing, amazing world that other folks out there taking advantage of?
Go with the perspective of the CEO.
I fundamentally believe that you are your own boss, even if you are technically an employee of somebody else. And what it means, and there's several books called Me Inc. And I give many speeches on this. And what it means is that you are your own boss. You are your own CEO. That even if you work somewhere and you're called an employee, I think you should see yourself as a vendor for that company. So that when you go to a job and they interview you, what they're really doing is they are hiring out you for your services, and they're going to pay you some money for your particular services. Well, if you own your own business, the exact same things happens, but you simply call them a client, they call you a vendor. Right. It's the exact same thing. Right. And so why is it that in one case, well, it's the employee and the employer? No, my philosophy is that you can call me an employee. I'm going to call myself my own company. I'm going to be a vendor, and you're my client. You're paying me for my service, and then if you like my service, you keep paying me. If you choose to fire me, that means that, you know, I didn't get laid off, that you simply chose to end the vendor-client relationship. Then my job is to go get me more clients. And then we begin to accept that. What it means is, because when you're your own CEO, that means that you are accountable to yourself in more ways than just an employee. That you walk in there and say, hey man, I ain't worrying about this job, it's going to mean nothing to me, I'm just going to do my little thing and move on. No. When you see yourself as a CEO, that means that you are the top dog. You are the one responsible for keeping the business going, keeping the money flowing. And so that's how you must see himself, as the CEO of a 7-employee company. It's the 5 kids, my wife, and me. So I got 7 employees to take care of as the CEO of my company. No CEO wants to lay off workers. You want to hire more workers. And so that's how I look at this whole thing. And so I've always taken that advantage. So even when I was at Yates, although I was a high school student studying communications, I always thought like I was the publisher of a newspaper or the general manager of a TV station or the owner of it. And so every decision I made was as if, what if I was the GM? What if I was the publisher? And so it wasn't just, I'm just going to sit over here and just do my regular thing. I think as African Americans, or anybody out there, white, Hispanic, I mean, take your pick. When you begin to see yourself as your own CEO, it changes your whole mindset of the job that you're doing. That you begin to recognize that I may need to be able to have my side hustle. I need to have a secondary job, a secondary stream of revenue. See, we call it a side job, side hustle, when if you got your own company, it's simply called another client.
Right.
And so when you look at it in that terms, it becomes less impersonal, because it's impersonal, but it becomes more business. And I'd rather be thinking more business oriented. That's my whole deal. That's why, you know, on my website, RolandSMartin.com, I got everything out there. That means I'm pushing out my audio, my video. I publish my own books. And people say, well, man, you can get your own book deal. Why? If I'm my own company, why should I be picking up 8-10% of the proceeds of a book that I'm out there pushing hard, when if I have the platform and media, I now own my book? Here's a perfect example. Senator Barack Obama writes a book that basically 1,000 folks probably bought, 1,000 copies sold. Right. Gives a speech in 2004, blows up, they sell 400,000 copies. Imagine if he had owned that book.
Good point.
At $15 for a paperback.
Yeah,
400,000 copies. Imagine that. See, it's a whole different. So my deal is, I'm waiting to blow up. So when I blow up and I sell 300,000 copies of my first 2 books, and I price that thing at $20, and 300,000 copies, right there is $6 million.
Let's talk about something. On your website, rather, on the windows, on your laptop yesterday, you had approximately 11 windows open?
Yeah.
All right, now explain to those who are not listening the different aspects of social media that you were actually dabbling in for those 11 windows.
When I talk about those revenue streams, I am a contributor on CNN. I am a commentator on TV One Cable Network. I have a nationally syndicated column with Creator Syndicate. I write a blog on Essence.com and write a column for Essence Magazine. Then also I have the books as well. And I think I'm leaving something out. I don't think so. My radio show. Oh, yeah. I got my radio show on WVON in Chicago. And so then, of course, you have the weekly CNN at a studio just outside of downtown. Tomorrow morning, I'm doing my radio show. That's a Chicago radio show from the kitchen table of my brother, because I'll be broadcasting over a high-speed internet line. And so no matter where I go, I'm able to do all the things that I can do from a remote location. I don't have to be in Chicago or in New York or my home in Dallas. I can be anywhere doing what I do. Now, everybody is not going to be in that particular position, but more and more companies are moving to having off-site offices, having people work out of homes. And the key for you is, if you're thinking like that, is how do I take this skill set that I have? If you're a graphic designer who's listening to me, if you are somebody who's a caterer, if you are a chef, no matter what the job is, you need to be thinking about, okay, I'm a chef and I'm working at this restaurant. That's great. I'm cooking for other people. How can I take what I'm doing right now and broaden that into my own thing? And so all of a sudden, instead of me coming in here 6 days a week, I might build my business up, my catering business, cooking for folks privately, maybe teaching. Because here's what people don't realize. If you get your master's degree, that eases you to be able to teach at community colleges. So imagine if you have an amazing skill set, and then you begin to apply to teach at a community college, well, you might be teaching 6-12 hours a week. That's another revenue stream, another opportunity. And so then all of a sudden, now you're doing other things. So if I'm a teacher, I got a catering firm, and I'm talking about cooking, I now have potential employees who I'm training in my class every day. I mean, it's just sitting there and realizing that I can go beyond where I am right now. I can be, my vision is much larger, and I think people need to really begin to assess the skill set they have and how they can build upon it. And all of a sudden, begin to grow, because as more companies outsource. I had a sister who was working for a company. They got rid of her job but they hired her to do the exact same job as a contractor.
Okay.
And she began to say, wait a minute, hold up. Now, I'm doing the same job for them, and they paying me the same amount. But now, now I'm not locked in to only doing work for this company. Now I can go do graphic design work for 3 other companies, and now orchestrating my time. And now, as opposed to the company hiring more help for her in her department, she began to farm out work to freelancers that was her own company. That's how you begin to rethink this whole employee-employer relationship, because the business world is changing. We have to change as well.
Talk about media positioning. Like, for example, everything you just discussed, there was a positioning for that.
Right. Well, first of all, and I'm a firm believer in Habakkuk 2. Write the vision down and make it plain. Too many people do not take the time to sit down, pray, meditate, to say, God, what am I supposed to be doing? What's your will for me? What are my skills? How should I be glorifying you? That's first. Because my gifts are in media. People have been trying to get me to go into politics. People coming to me with multi-level marketing stuff. There ain't none of that stuff meant for me. God said, no, I need you exactly where you are. So that's first. Then what happens is, after you do that, you write the vision down, then you have to understand that you might have this huge vision. Everything I'm doing right now, I saw it when I was in high school at Yates. I began to hone it when I got to college. But when I got out of college, I had to go into one of those mediums to build my skill set, to get better, to hone my craft. And then I transitioned from one to another. And then so I went from newspaper to radio. Then I went from radio, while doing radio, running a newspaper, leaving that radio station and newspaper, running another newspaper, then running a website. So all of a sudden, all the things that I'm doing over a period of years, I've been a professional journalist for 16 years, a period of years, begin to do it. Then, as the industry changed, and it all began to morph and converge, and all of a sudden, it became a point where I was able to do television and radio and magazine and newspaper and internet and speaking engagements and book all at the same time, because I had the firm foundation. You can't do what I'm doing unless you've gone through all those particular steps. I had a guy who's a recruiter for a website, and he said, well, I got to ask you, you haven't spent more than 3 years at any of these jobs. And I said, you're right. And I said, but had I not spent the time at those jobs, you wouldn't be talking to me. Because had I not had a radio background, a newspaper background, a web background, and a magazine background, he wouldn't have been talking to me. So he was thinking in terms of years. I was thinking in terms of skill set. And he acknowledged, yeah, you're right.
On that note, give some more information, some place where people can actually go, either to your blog or to podcasts, or some area there where they can actually revisit what you just stated, because that's important for people, especially during this economy.
Oh, absolutely. It is. Well, first, my site is RolandSMartin.com. ROLAND, S as in Sam, Martin.com. So I got a blog on there, and I'm always putting this information out there. But a lot of the things that I am actually doing, that I'm talking about, are also in my book. Because so many things come from a spiritual perspective. And so that Habakkuk verse, I got a whole chapter on that. The whole issue of vision on that. The whole issue of sacrifice on that. Because that's the other piece. People don't understand. You don't get to where I am, what I'm doing, and where I'm going, without going through periods of sacrifice. Without sitting there. Man, I went through a period of 18 months with no full-time job. And so how do you have a level of faith when you have an amazing skill set, but you don't have a full-time job, and you're not quite sure how you're going to pay your mortgage? But again, that's the one when God is saying, no, trust me, I got this for you, but I need you to go through some stuff in order to get there. So everything's there on the website, and actually the conversation we had yesterday, I'm going to be podcasting that. It was like an hour-and-a-half conversation, right, so people can really understand it. And again, the biggest thing is, I don't care who you are, there's absolutely nothing that you can't do. But as long as you stay stuck and refusing to step up, refusing to have vision, refusing to think, refusing to actually believe in yourself, you're going to fail. It's not going to happen. I mean, you cannot go from being a chef to owning a catering service if you don't take the time to figure out, and that is portions, if you don't take the time to figure out how much pans are going to cost, all those different things. And so it's also preparing for yourself. The last point I'll make is this here, and this is vital. If you have a job right now, and you know there's a vision that's much larger for you, prepare for that moment now. I had a full-time job, and I first of all started writing my book. And then I started pushing my book. Then I began speaking. Still a full-time job. I actually began to build my brand. I began to put my vision into place while I was working at a full-time job. Because what happens is we wait till we get fired or laid off to then say, okay, I got to start. But now it's too late. Now you're behind the 8 ball. So if you have a side hustle, launch your website right now. Launch your blog right now. Put all your pieces in place. So when I got laid off from a website, I walked in and I said, how long is this going to take? I brought my boxes with me because I spent 15 months putting all my pieces into place. So the day they said it was a Wednesday, the day they said on Wednesday that it's over, meaning they ended the vendor relationship, on Thursday I started a new deal. But most people on that Wednesday, they all of a sudden get caught by surprise. And then on Thursday, man, what am I going to do? No. Work your plan right now. And it may not come to fruition 4 years from now. But the 4 years you spent working and building and honing it, that's put you in a position for greatness.
Before we change that subject matter, talk about CNN, when you first came to CNN.
Oh, yeah, but see, again, sacrifice. I get people now who say, man, I love to do what you do. And I say, well, first of all, I didn't just wake up on CNN. I have been paid from CNN since February 2007. That's when I signed the contract. But I appeared on CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, Court TV, BET for free for 5 years. The first time I went on CNN was July 2002. That was my first ever appearance. And I explained to people that it's proving yourself. You don't just wake up on TV. Everybody thinks they can do TV. Everybody thinks, oh man, I can do that. But it's like, no, but if you don't quite understand time, if you don't understand the reality of lighting and makeup and how to be able to get in, get out, all the nuances of it, no, you can't do it. And so what was amazing is when they would call me, I was always available. That is, they will call you in the spur of the moment. Roland, hey, we need you in 2 hours to do this show. Can you do it? Yes. Because again, my plan was to do it. I could not say my vision is to be a commentator on TV, but when I was called sort of in the waiting room, I was always like, I'm not available. Because what happens is, if you say no one time, they might call you back. Then they might not.
That's the stronger possibility.
Right. So my deal was I was always ready. If I couldn't do it, it was seriously, I just flat out could not do it. And so I made myself available. I always had a coat and tie handy because you go on, boom, you got to have your look straight, and you always got to be on. You always got to be reading information. And I tell people, from July 2002 to February 2007, I was appearing for free. And they would call me sometimes 5, 6 times in a week. And people were like, man, you ain't getting no check? Man, what's wrong with you? It's like, because sometimes the check don't come today. It's just like when you networking. You might meet somebody. I was a junior at Yates High School. And there was a career day. And a guy came to the school, George Strait. George used to be chairman of the Texas Republican Party. And I was asking George all these questions about public policy. And he was like, who was this little black kid asking all these daggum questions? And so we began to talk, began to know him, stayed in contact with him. When I was a sophomore at Texas A&M, our black journalist chapter was looking to go to the NABJ convention in New York. We sent 30 some odd letters to foundations all around Texas. We got 29 rejection letters. Then the last letter, we got a letter, and it said, It said, I appreciate the, writing for the money. Here's a check for $1,000 to help defray y'all costs to go to the convention. The check was signed by George Strait. The relationship, and by going to that convention, 1989, I ran for the board of NABJ, only student, national student rep. Nearly every job that I've gotten has been a result of the relationships that were first established at that convention. Had we not gotten that check, had I not ridden the train, my dad worked at Amtrak for free, I would not have been able to go to that convention. The point there is, sometimes a networking opportunity does not come to fruition until 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the road.
True.
The point is not to get frustrated, it's not to get angry, it's to keep working on your game, and then when the time is right, and all of a sudden it happens. And so people all of a sudden just swear at me, I want to do it right now, and they figure they've been called 2 or 3 times, why am I not getting paid? Because, baby, it's a whole bunch of folks in line. It's a whole bunch of folks you see on TV every day who don't get paid. And so when you see somebody, so when I'm on CNN and when you hear them say CNN contributor Roland Martin, that means I'm getting a check. When you hear somebody say CNN political analyst so-and-so, that means they're getting a check. When you hear simply Roland Martin so-and-so website, that means they doing it for free.
Let's talk about your political side. Let's also talk about Senator Obama.
Mm-hmm.
You've defended him very heroically, very nicely, so many different times. I was quite proud of you, and that's when I figured you was an independent. I said, he's talking too freely. All right. Talk to me a little bit about 2 things.
Mm-hmm.
Reverend Wright, and then also Pennsylvania.
I have defended Obama. I have criticized Obama.
Yes.
Same thing with Clinton and McCain. And so I like having the freedom to be able to say whatever I want to say, not to have some party sitting going to pull my coattail. But the thing about TV, radio, whatever, is I love the phrase game, recognize game. And you have to understand when you're watching TV, listening to radio, reading a column, what is the bent or the motive of the person I'm watching, listening to, or reading.
Yes.
So if you are watching somebody and they are always critical against liberals and talking about liberals, you know exactly where they're coming from. If they're always riding Obama but say nothing about Clinton, you can figure that one out. Same thing about riding McCain because they were liking Mitt Romney. You can figure that out. And so for me, my deal is I have a very simple philosophy. If you do good, I'm going to talk about you. If you do bad, I'm going to talk about you. At the end of the day, I'm going to talk about you. So that's the way I roll. So when it came to Reverend Wright, the problem is I am married to an ordained minister. My wife was Reverend Jackie Hood Martin, who was the first female staff pastor at Brook Hollow Baptist Church. And next month, I pick up my master's in Christian communications. I own a Christian newspaper in Dallas, and I ran Brook Hollow Baptist Church's magazine when I was here in Houston. And every place I've worked, I've always added a faith component, whether it's a page, channel, whatever. And so my issue with Wright was that you had people who were placing a secular standard in a theological world. And on the flip side, many people in a theological world are often trying to place their standards on a secular situation. So when Judge Roy Moore in Alabama wanted that 10 Commandments monument, he was like, I'm a Christian, I believe in the Word of God, I want this monument. But what he didn't understand was that the Bible can collide with the Constitution. And when you are a sworn office holder, your responsibility, you might be swearing on the Bible, but you are swearing to uphold and protect the Constitution. That's where they collide. And so I simply felt that there was a secular standard that was being applied to Reverend Wright because he was speaking in a prophetic way. It's no different than when Nathan went to David and said, "You wrong for sleeping with Bathsheba, for having Uriah killed." That was the prophet speaking to the king about something he did wrong. The problem with these so-called patriots, the little balls of hate like Sean Hannity, you know, the folks like Bill O'Reilly who call themselves Catholic, call themselves Christians, but they put more faith in their politics than their God. They don't want to have that conversation. But also, they don't mind when you have conservative pastors who talk about abortion and homosexuality. They agree with those issues, and then say, well, that's okay, but he can't talk about HIV/AIDS. And so my deal with that was, what did he say? Anytime somebody comes to me and they say, well, Natalie said, Roland, you full of it. First thing I'll say is, okay, what was she talking about? Who was she talking to? Mm-hmm. Because the context is most important. And I'm always doing that. And I'm always asking, what did they say before the quote? What did they say after the quote? I need to know what they said. And so that's what happened with Reverend Wright. And so my deal, though, I never felt like I was defending Reverend Wright or I was defending Obama. I felt that I was defending the prophetic tradition of the church, because if the prophetic tradition of the church gets muted, if pastors begin to get scared to say certain things in the pulpit, well, then the people cannot fully be freed. And that's what bothered me with the whole conversation, because I said, now wait a minute, the sermon where he talked about it, he said GD America, that sermon was actually a sermon called God versus Government. In the whole sermon he said, God, you cannot equate government with God. But see, if you listen to it, all of a sudden you say, well, wait a minute, that's what you're talking about. Now, where he erred, I said he was wrong. He was wrong when he said the government injected African Americans with AIDS. Now, you could talk about that HIV was developed by the CDC or in a lab, things along those lines. But hey, do you have full truth with that? No, you don't. So my deal was, okay, so if he said 20 things and 2 of them were wrong, he got 18 right. And if this was a test and it was a 5 points for each one of those issues, that means he scored a 90. All right. So that's one of the issues that I have there. But that was really about the church, and that is what bothers me, because I just simply feel that if the church grows silent, we got a problem. And I think too many pastors on the local level, on the state level, on the federal level, are not abiding by the prophetic tradition, and that is speaking truth to power even when it hurts.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Somebody got to say it.
I know.